When Nelson Okafor died on a Wednesday morning in September of 2022, the woman he had thrown out of his house 3 years earlier was the only person his mother would allow to bury him. Her name is Adaeze Nwachukwu Okafor. She is 29 years old. She is the mother of his twin children, and she has not spoken his name inside her own house since the night he told her to leave. The woman he chose over her, the woman he told his mother he was going to marry once the paperwork was finished, is not at the mortuary. She is not at the burial. She is not, as far as anyone in Nelson's family knows, anywhere that can be reached by phone. This is the story of what happened in the 3 years between the night Adaeze left that house with the 2 babies in her arms and the morning she walked into this room to identify what was left of the man who had sent her out of it. It is not a story about revenge. Adaeze does not appear at any point in what follows to have wished him dead. It is a story about a woman who kept building while a man kept breaking, and about the exact hour at which these 2 lines finally crossed. This is the woman who buried him. There is a question people who did not know Adaeze have asked when they hear the story for the first time. The question is not why did he do it. Everyone thinks they know why men do what Nelson did. The question is not how did she survive. Nigerian women survive worse than this every day of the week, and the country keeps moving. The question is this: when a woman has been thrown out of a house she helped to build, with 2 children at her breast and her name still on the lease and her clothes still hanging in the wardrobe upstairs, what does she reach for first? Because whatever she reached for first, that is the woman she becomes. Adaeze Nwachukwu was 19 years old when her brother Ikenna walked into the room in Ikorodu that this channel has spent an hour of your time trying to explain. She was in her 2nd year at the College of Nursing in Yaba. She was studying because her mother had studied. She was cautious because her father had died, and caution had become the family's 2nd language. And she was, by the reckoning of every aunt and every neighbor and every woman at the Pentecostal assembly on Adeniran Ogosanya Street, the sensible one. This is what people mean in a Nigerian Christian household when they say the sensible one. They mean the one who does not need to be told twice. They mean the one who does not misplace things. They mean the one who, when the family finds itself in trouble, is the person the mother turns to first, not because she is loved most, but because she is the one who will not add to the load. Adaeze had understood from the time she was 12 years old and her father lay in a bed at Lasut that her mother could not afford to live, that the world was a place in which small mistake killed people. This understanding made her excellent at her studies. It made her difficult at parties. It made her, over the years that followed, exactly the wife a certain kind of Nigerian man believes he wants until he has her. The house she grew up in after her father died ran on a set of unwritten instructions. Instruction 1: you don't raise your voice inside these walls. Instruction 2: you don't spend money you had not earned. Instruction 3: you don't bring a boy home unless you were prepared to introduce him to your mother by his full name, his church, his village, and the year his father had died, if his father had died. Adaeze had, by age of 19, kept all 3 instructions. She had also, by the age of 19, watched her brother break every one of them at once. In the 18 months between Ikenna's fall and Ikenna's return, Adaeze did something that people who do not live in that house did not see and did not credit her for. She held the family together. She did not do it with prayer, though she prayed. She did not do it with tears, though she wept in the bedroom with the tap running so that Ogechi would not hear her. She did it with a spreadsheet. Every naira the family received, Adaeze accounted for. Every naira the family spent, Adaeze recorded. Her mother had been a nurse for 22 years and had never balanced a budget in her life because her husband had done it. And after her husband died, grief had done it. And grief is not a good accountant. Adaeze was a good accountant. By the time she was 21 and Ikenna had come home, the family was not rich, but the family had not borrowed. The family had not been evicted. The family had not, at any point in the 18 months of Ikenna's disappearance, gone hungry. This is the woman Nelson Okafor met on a Thursday afternoon in March of 2019 at a wedding in Magodo he had not particularly wanted to attend. He was 25. He was an accountant at a firm in Victoria Island, whose name I will not use because his family still works there. He had come with a cousin who was a friend of the groom's brother. He did not know anyone at his table. He saw her before she saw him. He would tell her on the night of the engagement 2 years later that what he had noticed first was the way she was watching the money being counted, not with envy and not with judgment, but with the quiet attention of a person who had been keeping ledger her whole life and could not switch it off even at a wedding. He introduced himself as Nelson. She asked, before she gave him her own name, 3 questions in the following order. Nelson what? Nelson from where? And because she was Chiamaka Nwachukwu's daughter and had grown up in a house of unwritten instruction, Nelson whose son? He was Nelson Chukwuemeka Okafor. He was from Nnewi, though he had grown up in Enugu. He was the son of Chief Okafor of Nnewi North, who had died 6 years earlier of a stroke he did not see coming. Adaeze gave him her name. She would tell her sister 3 days later that what she had noticed first was that he had answered the 3rd question without asking why she had asked it, which meant, she said, that either he had grown up in a house like hers or he was clever enough to know that he should pretend he had. The difference between those 2 possibilities is the whole story of what happened next. Adaeze, cautious, sensible, the reader of instructions, did not at 19 know how to tell the difference. She would learn. They were married on the 11th of October 2020 at the Pentecostal Assembly on Adeniran Obusanya Street. Adaeze wore her mother's wedding lace taken in at the waist and let out at the sleeves. Nelson wore a cream agbada his mother had sent from Nnewi. The reception was held at a small hall behind the church and cost less than the ashwebi the guests were wearing because Adaeze had planned it, and Adaeze did not spend money that was not there to be spent. Ikenna gave the toast. He said 3 sentences. Then he sat down. He said, "My sister held this family together with her hands. If you are marrying her, you are marrying those hands. Do not ever let them go empty." Nelson laughed and thanked him warmly. Adaeze, who knew her brother better than anyone else in that room, did not laugh. She watched Nelson's face while Ikenna was still speaking, and she noted, without saying anything, that Nelson had not quite understood what her brother had just said to him. She filed this. She did not act on it. They rented a flat in Magodo, 2-bedroom, a small balcony that caught the afternoon's light. Nelson's firm had promoted him twice in the 18 months before the wedding, and he was, by the standard of a Nigerian 26 years old, he was doing well. The first year was very good. He was, in that first year, the man she had thought she was marrying. He came home when he said he would come home. He gave her his salary and let her budget it because he had noticed the way she had noticed him noticing, that she was the one who knew what a naira was for. He prayed with her before meals. He called her Mother 𝗗𝗲𝗱 and meant it. There was one evening in April of 2021 when she came home from a shift at Lasut. She had qualified as a registered nurse the previous month and found that he had cooked jollof rice. badly, but he had cooked. She cried in the bedroom that night, happy tears. She would remember later that she had cried happy tears exactly once in the marriage. It was that night. The twins were born on the 16th of December 2021, a boy and a girl. They named the boy Chinedu, God is leading me. They named the girl Chiamaka after Adaeze's mother, who wept when she was told, and then told them to name the child something else because a child should not have to carry the mother's name and a mother's history at the same time. They kept the name. Chiamaka the elder held Chiamaka the younger and did not put her down for 2 hours. Nelson wept in the hospital hallway that night. His cousin, who had driven him to the hospital and was waiting outside, would tell Adaeze at the burial 3 years later that in the 17 years he had known Nelson, he had never seen him weep before. This was the peak of the marriage. Adaeze did not know at that time that it was the peak. The first sign was small. Nelson had begun in the 3rd month after the twins were born to accept Saturday's assignment from his firm. He had never worked Saturdays before. He explained that the firm was short-staffed and that a new partner had joined and was reorganizing the schedule, that it would only be for a few months. Adaeze, who was operating on 3 hours of sleep a night and had not left the flat in 11 days, did not have the energy to ask questions. She said okay. She kissed him goodbye. She went back to folding. She filed this. She did not act on it. This is the thing about caution. Caution is very good at telling you when something is wrong. Caution is very bad at telling you when to do anything about it. Caution's advice: when the evidence is small and the cost of confrontation is large, it's always the same. File it, watch, wait for something bigger. Adaeze had been given over 3 years, 7 pieces of evidence that were each small enough to file. She filed all 7. By the time the 8th arrived, it was not small. The second sign was smaller. He stopped asking about her day. It happened gradually, not all at once. First was on Fridays when he was tired. Then it was on Fridays and Mondays. Then it was every day except Sunday, when they went to church and he was performing husband for the assembly to see. She filed this. She did not act on it. The 3rd sign she almost missed. Nelson had begun in the middle of 2021 to change his shirt in the evenings before he came into the flat. He said the office air conditioning had been broken and he did not want to bring the sweat home. Adaeze knew because she was a nurse and she noticed bodies that Nelson did not sweat easily. Nelson had never sweat easily. She filed this. She did not act on it. The 4th sign was the one that should have moved her. It was a Sunday. He was holding their daughter. And Adaeze noticed from the kitchen at a distance of perhaps 4 meters that when she looked down at the child in his arm, his face was not the face of a father looking at his daughter. It was the face of a man calculating. Calculating what? She did not know. She could not have said. She would spend years afterwards trying to name what she had seen. The closest she ever came was this. He was looking at the baby the way a man looks at collateral, not with cruelty, with arithmetic. She filed this. She did not act on it. This is what caution costs. Caution had told her at 19 that dosage error was the most common preventable cause of patient mortality. Caution had not told her that the same principle applied to marriage, that the small doses of wrongness, filed, accumulated to something lethal. By the time she was ready to act, the dose was already in her system. The 5th sign was the one she finally moved on. Nelson had laughed at his phone one morning in a way that was not for her, that was not for a colleague. that was not for the news, that was not for a family group chat. It was for a person. Adaeze, sensible, cautious, the reader of instruction, waited until he had left for work. She waited until she had fed the twins and put them down for their nap. She waited until she was alone in the flat, and the flat was quiet, and she was standing in the bedroom in front of the wardrobe. Then she did the thing she had spent 3 years telling herself she would never do. She opened his bag. There was no phone in it. He had taken his phone to work. There was no letter in it. There was no receipt. There was nothing in it that a woman in a Nollywood film would find at this moment in the story. There was, in the small inner pocket of the bag, a hotel key card from a hotel on Victoria Island. The card had a room number written on it in blue biro, in a handwriting that was not Nelson's. Adaeze put the key card back, exactly where she had found it. She closed the bag. She left the bedroom. She went back to the kitchen. She finished the washing up. She did not that night confront him. She filed it. And then, for the first time in 3 years, she began quietly, without telling anyone, without changing anything in her face or her voice or her body, to plan. The notebook she opened that night was not the one she had used at 19. That one was still in a drawer at her mother's flat in Surulere, in the same box as her nursing school textbook. This was a new notebook. The first page had 2 words written at the top in Adaeze's careful handwriting. The words were, "If this." Adaeze had been raised by a mother who had lost a husband without warning. To know one thing about a Nigerian woman's life that many Nigerian women learn too late. The thing is this: a woman who does not have her own ledger does not have her own life. In the 6 weeks between the night she found the hotel key cards and the night Nelson threw her out of the flat, Adaeze balanced her ledger quietly, completely, alone. When the moment came, she was ready for it. She just had not expected it to come as fast as it did. It happened on a Wednesday in the 3rd week of December 2022, 9 months after the twins were born, and 6 weeks after Adaeze opened the notebook. It happened at 9:47 p.m. Adaeze remembers the time because she had just looked at the clock on the microwave in the kitchen while heating water for the twins' bottles. Chinedu had been fusing. Chiamaka had been asleep. Nelson had been in the bedroom on his phone with the door closed. She would tell me years later that she had known something was going to happen that night before she knew what it was. She had heard him raise his voice on the phone in the bedroom twice. The words had not been clear. The tone had been clear. It was not a work call. She had set the bottle down. She had wiped her hands on the dish towel. She had crossed the living room to check on Chinedu, and she had, on her way past the bedroom door, paused for perhaps 2 seconds outside it, not eavesdropping, just listening. Then she had gone to her son. The bedroom door opened at 9:51 p.m. Nelson came out. He did not look at the babies. He did not look at his wife. He walked past her into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, drank it standing at the sink, and then turned around and said her name. Not Ada, not my love, not baby, not the diminutive he had used for 3 years. He said, Adaeze. She looked up. She did not say anything. He said, and these are the sentences she wrote down in the notebook 2 hours later at her mother's house, so that she would remember them exactly, so that she would not be able to tell herself in the years to come that she had misheard him. He said, I need you to leave this house tonight. He said, I need you to take the babies with you. He said, I will send someone for your things in the morning. Adaeze, who had 6 weeks earlier opened a notebook and written, what if? did not in the moment feel surprised. She felt the small, cold, clarifying calm of a woman who has been rehearsing for a moment she did not want to arrive. She asked him one question. She asked it in Igbo, which they did not usually speak inside the flat because they had agreed earlier in the marriage that the babies would learn English first and Igbo at their grandmother's house. She asked, "Kedu ihe mere? What have I done?" He said, "Nothing. That's the problem." Then he turned around and went back into the bedroom and closed the door. She put on a wrapper. She put on shoes. She did not put on jewelries. She left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter beside the empty water glass. She wheeled the stroller to the front door. She looked back once at the closed bedroom door. She did not knock. She did not say goodbye. She opened the front door. She wheeled the stroller through it. She closed the front door behind her. The compound guard was asleep. Adaeze did not wake him. On the streets at 10:14 p.m. in the third week of December, she did the only thing there was left to do. She called her brother. Ikenna Nwachukwu was 23 years old. He had been home from Ikorodu for 2 years. He was working quietly at a small IT firm in Ikeja that had hired him without asking too many questions. He had not, in the 2 years since he came home, raised his voice inside his mother's flat. He answered on the third ring. He said, "Sister, what is it?" Adaeze said, in a voice so calm that Ikenna would tell her months later that it was the voice that frightened him more than the words. She said, "I need you to come and get me. I am on the street outside my house. I have the babies with me. Do not tell Mama yet." He arrived in 41 minutes. He arrived in a taxi he had paid for out of a week's salary. He did not ask her, on the drive to Surulere, what had happened. He did not ask her, on the drive to Surulere, if she was okay. He held Chiamaka on his lap and let Adaeze hold Chidubem, and he watched his sister's face in the passing lights of the street lamp on the third mainland bridge. He would tell her a year later that on that drive he had understood for the first time what she had done for him in the 18 months he was in the dark room. He would tell her that he had not, until that night, known how to be her brother in the way she had been his sister. He said, "From tonight, I know." Mama Chiamaka did not ask questions. She had, in the 26 years of her marriage and the 9 years of her widowhood, learned something about the arrival of a daughter at her mother's door at midnight with 2 babies in a stroller and no husband. She said, "Adannem, Biano, my daughter, come in." She took Chiamaka the younger out of the stroller. She kissed the child's forehead. She carried her, still sleeping, into the parlor, and she laid her down on the green velour couch, and she said over her shoulder in a voice that Adaeze would remember for the rest of her life, "Whatever it is, we will not speak of it tonight. Tonight we will feed the babies and we will sleep. Tomorrow we will begin." Adaeze did not cry that night. She did not cry the following morning. When she woke up on the couch in the parlor beside her daughter and realized she was 26 years old and she was living in her mother's house again, she did not cry on the Sunday, when she went with her mother to the assembly on Adeniran Ogusanya Street. And the woman at church noticed she was not wearing her wedding ring and did not ask. She did not cry, in fact, for another 11 days. When she finally did cry, on the 28th of December, it was not because of Nelson, it was not because of the flat, it was not because of anything Nelson had said or done. It was because she had opened the notebook, the second notebook, the one that began with "if this," and she had turned to a blank page, and she had written at the top in her careful handwriting 2 new words. The words were, "Now what?" The first thing Adaeze had to decide in the wilderness was what she was going to tell people. The women at the assembly had noticed the missing ring. The neighbors in the compound had noticed the arrival of the babies. Her mother's colleagues at Lasud had begun to ask, in the careful, indirect way that Nigerian women ask, whether Adaeze had come home for Christmas or come home for something else. Adaeze, who had been raised by a woman who did not let grief become the story, decided in the first week of January 2023 that she would not let this become the story either. When the women at the assembly asked her, carefully, indirectly, in the language of Nigerian church condolence, how she was managing, Adaeze said the same sentence to every one of them. She said, Nelsie and I are living apart at the moment. The children are with me. God is faithful. The second thing she had to decide was how to make money. Her last salary was 78,000 Naira a month. Her share of the flat expenses at her mother's, because she insisted on paying her share, and Chiamaka, who understood her daughter, allowed her to, was 30,000. The twins' formula, nappies, and medical costs came to another 40,000 on a good month. The arithmetic did not work. Adaeze knew it did not work. She had known it did not work from the second night at her mother's, when she had done the sum in the notebook and stared at the negative numbers at the bottom of the page for a long time. She began in the second week of January to look for a second job. She took a private nursing assignment in the evenings, home visits, administering injections to elderly patients in Ikeja and Magodo. She took on Wednesday afternoons a tutoring job, helping the 12-year-old daughter of a woman from the assembly with her mathematics homework in exchange for 8,000 Naira a week and a hot meal. By March of 2023, Adaeze was working 72 hours a week. The tutoring job was the thing that changed everything. The girl's name was Aisha. She was 12. She was a bright, careless, sharp-tongued Yoruba girl from a Christian-Muslim marriage, whose mother had been at the assembly for 11 years and who did not, Adaeze understood, actually need help with her mathematics. What Aisha needed was for someone to sit across a table from her twice a week and require of her that she think clearly for 90 minutes at a time. She noticed over 8 weeks that Aisha's mathematics results moved by 20 percentage points. Aisha's father was a man called Adebayo Ogunlana. He was a partner at a construction firm in Abuja and Lagos. He owned 3 houses. He owned a warehouse in Isolo that had, at various points in the previous decades, been used to store cement, imported ceramics, and briefly in 2018, when a tenant had asked and Ogulana had said yes because he liked the tenant's school desk. He had since 2020 been thinking about opening a school. He met Adaeze for the first time on a Saturday afternoon in May of 2023 at a restaurant in Ikeja GRA. At his wife's suggested, Adaeze thought she was going to lunch to be thanked for tutoring Aisha. She was going to lunch to be recruited. He asked her about her nursing training. He asked her about her mother. He asked her, without ever asking directly, why a registered nurse was tutoring his daughter on Wednesday afternoons for 8,000 Naira. Then he told her what he wanted. She spent 4 nights with the notebook. On the first night, she wrote out, in one column, every reason to say yes: the salary, the exit from her mother's flat, the children's future school fees, the end of the 72 hours week, the respect the title would carry at the assembly, the signal it would send to every woman who had noticed the missing ring. On the second night, she wrote out, in the other column, every reason to say no. She stopped at 3 lines and put down the pen because the 3 lines were enough. She was not, at 26 years old and 4 months out of a marriage, going to walk into another building she did not own. she was not going to build another life for another man to end when he was tired of it. She met him on the Friday. She wore the green wrapper because green, in the household she had grown up in, was the color her mother wore to negotiate at Lasso. She thanked him for the offer. She told him she could not accept it in the form he had proposed. Then she made him a counter offer. She said, "I will not head your school. I will partner with you on a school. You will provide the building and the working capital. I will provide the management, the curriculum, the staffing, and the operational plan. The certificate of registration will list both of us. The equity will be 40% to me and 60% to you until we hit 300 pupils. At that point, it will rebalance to 50-50. At 500 pupils, I will have the option to buy out your shares at a valuation to be agreed in advance, in writing tonight." She said, "I understand this is not the deal a person in my position gets in Lagos, in this economy." She said, "I am asking for it anyway." He said, "My dear, do you know how many people have asked me for something like this in the last 5 years?" Adaeze said, "I don't know." He said, "None, not one, not a single one of them." On the Wednesday, Adaeze called him. She accepted his counter with one small modification. The buyout multiple would be 2.75 times trailing revenue, not 3 times, because 2.75 was she had determined over 3 nights with the notebook what the ratio of her contribution to his contribution actually was. Ogunlana laughed again. He said yes. They signed the paperwork on the 11th of July 2023 in a lawyer's office in Ikeja. Adaeze wore the green wrapper. Her mother came with her. The first Ogunlana Nwachukwu School, later renamed after the buyout in 2028, simply Nwachukwu Preparatory Isolo, opened on the 14th of September 2023 with 41 pupils, 3 teachers, and a headmistress who was 26 years old and who had 9 months earlier been sleeping on a green velour couch in her mother's parlor. By December, she had 93 pupils. By the following September, she had 311. By the September after that, 520. On the 2nd of February 2028, Adaeze Nwachukwu Okafor wired Adebayo Ogunlana 142 million naira for his remaining share of the school. The certificate of registration was reissued in her name alone. This is what Adaeze reached for. This is what the question in the cold open was asking. When a woman is thrown out of a house she helped to build, and she has 2 children at her breast and 84,000 naira in her handbag and a mother's couch to sleep on, what she reached for first, if she is careful, is not another man. What she reached for first is a ledger. The 3rd notebook was the one that mattered. Nelson Okafor, who had, in the years since the night at 9:47 p.m., become someone Adaeze thought about less and less often, did not know that any of this had happened. He would not know until the final 6 weeks of his life what his wife had built without him. By then, it would be too late for him to see it. The woman Nelson had chosen was called Ijeoma. She was 24 years old when he met her. In the last week of October 2022, at an office he had been assigned to for a 2-week secondment, she worked in the finance department of a firm his firm was auditing. She was clever, she was bright, she was ambitious in the specific way that a certain kind of young Lagos woman is ambitious. The way that reads as energy when you meet her and as calculation only when you know her longer than that. Ijeoma had moved into the Magodo flat in the 3rd week of January 2023, 5 weeks after Adaeze left it. By July, she had asked Nelson twice why he had not, in several months, filed for divorce. By September, she had asked him a 3rd time, and Nelson had said, "I am waiting for the right moment." And Ijeoma had understood, in the way that clever young Lagos women understand these things, that there was not going to be a right moment. By November, Ijeoma was not at the flat as often as she had been. By January of 2024, she was not at the flat at all. He was, by the end of January 2024, alone in the flat. He was 31 years old. He was still an accountant at the firm on Victoria Island. He had been passed over for promotion twice in the previous 18 months. Once because his work had become unreliable, and once because his supervisor had heard from a mutual acquaintance at church about his wife and the twins in Surulere. He had, during the year Ijeoma had lived with him, borrowed money. He had borrowed from his cousin. He had borrowed from the cousin's wife. He had, in June, borrowed from a colleague at the firm. He had paid none of them back. When Ijeoma left, she left with the last 340,000 Naira in his current account. She had asked for it over the 6 months previous in small enough amounts that Nelson's banking app had not flagged them. Adaeze had used the same method in reverse in 2022. Nelson did not know this. He never would. The first symptom appeared in April of 2024. It was not dramatic. It was not the kind of thing a Nigerian man goes to the hospital for. It was a small persistent ache in the left side of his chest. In the mornings, particularly on the morning after he had drunk the night before, which was, by April, most mornings, he assumed it was heartburn. He did not tell his cousin. He did not tell his mother. He did not at any point walk into a hospital. His father had died of a stroke he did not see coming. Nelson, who was his father's son in more ways than he understood, did not, at 31 years old, know how to walk into a hospital before something had already happened. By September of 2024, the ache had become a pressure. By December, the pressure had become a shortness of breath when he climbed the stairs to the flat. He bought antacid. He bought paracetamol. He bought, in January of 2025, a bottle of herbal preparation from a woman at a store in Balogun Market who told him it would open his chest. He drank the preparation for 11 days. On the 12th day, he began to bleed from his gums. He stopped drinking the preparation. He did not at any point walk into a hospital. He would later tell his mother on a phone call 3 weeks before he died that this was the moment he understood. Understood what? His mother had asked. Understood, Nelson had said, that he had married a woman whose ceiling he had not been able to see, that he had thrown out of his house a woman who would build in 5 years 3 things larger than anything he would build in a lifetime, that he had, at 29, standing in a kitchen in Magodo at 9:47 p.m., made the single most expensive mistake it was possible for a Nigerian man of his generation to make. His mother had not known what to say to him. She had said, eventually, "Nelson, my son, go and see a doctor." He had said, "Soon, Mama, soon." The hotel room was in a 2-stair business hotel on Adeola Adekun Street. It cost 22,000 Naira a night, which Nelson could not really afford, but which he had booked because his cousin had asked him not to sleep at the Magodo flat that week because the landlord was coming to change the locks, and Nelson had not wanted to be in the flat when it happened. He checked in on a Monday evening. He was due to check out on the Friday morning. He did not check out on the Friday morning. He did not answer the front desk call on the Friday afternoon. On the Friday evening at 6:12 p.m., A housekeeper opened the door with her master key. Nelson was on the floor beside the bed. He had been dead. The coroner would later determine for approximately 14 hours. The cause of death was recorded as acute cardiac event, secondary to untreated hypertensive cardiomyopathy. He was 32 years old. He had not at any point in the previous 4 years walked into a hospital. The call came on a Saturday morning at 11:04 a.m. It was from Nelson's mother, whose number Adaeze still had in her phone. Nelson's mother did not cry on the call. She was 71 years old. She had buried a husband and now she was going to bury a son, and the second one had been coming for longer than she would ever tell anyone. She said, "Adaeze nnem, Nelson is gone." Adaeze, who had heard those exact 3 words about her own father in her mother's voice on a Thursday afternoon when she was 10 years old, put her hand flat on the desk in front of hers. She said, "Ma, I am so sorry. What do you need me to do?" Nelson's mother said what she had rehearsed in the hour between the police call and this one. She said, "His cousin cannot do this properly. The girl he was with has disappeared. His sister is in Canada and cannot fly back in time. I am asking you, as his wife, to come to the mortuary and identify him. I am asking you, as the mother of his children, to be there when we bury him. I am not asking you to forgive him. I would not ask you that." She said, "Nobody else will do this properly." Adaeze, who had been raised at 19 to know that when a mother asks for something, a certain kind of daughter says yes. She said yes. She told the twins that afternoon, "Your father was ill. Your father did not tell anyone he was ill. Your father has died. He was not with us before he died, and I have not lied to you about that. But I want you to know, and I want your grandmother to know I told you, that whatever else your father was, he was your father, and he loved you. I will bury him properly. That is what your mother is going to do. Do you understand?" Chidubem, who was 4 years and 9 months old and looked exactly like his father, said, "Yes, Mama." Chiamaka the younger, who was 4 years and 9 months old and looked exactly like her mother, said nothing at all. She climbed into her mother's lap and she put her small hand on her mother's cheek, and she looked at her mother for a long time. Adaeze, who had not cried in the office and had not cried in the car and had not cried when she told her son, cried then. The taxi took her not to Nnewi, where the burial would be held the following day. It took her to a small primary school in Isolo, where 41 children in green and white uniform were, and that exact moment, being taught the multiplication tables by a woman Adaeze had hired 18 months earlier and who was very good at her job. Adaeze walked into the compound. She greeted the security guard. She went to her office. She sat down at her desk. She opened the third notebook. She turned to a blank page and she wrote at the top in her careful handwriting 2 words. The words were Lekki 2. Nelson was buried the following day in his father's compound in Nnewi beside the grave of the man he had inherited more from than he had ever understood. There were 43 people at the burial. Nelson's mother had counted. She had told Adaeze on the phone the night before that she was not expecting more. Nelson had been in Lagos for 11 years. Lagos had, in the end, kept most of the people who had known him. Nnewi had been left with only those who had known him longest. When the priest had finished and the earth had begun to be turned into the grave, Nelson's mother beckoned Adaeze to her chair. Adaeze went. The twins came with her because they had not yet, in their 4 years and 10 months of life, been asked to stand anywhere without their mother. Nelson's mother looked at the twins for a long time. Then she looked at Adaeze. She said in Igbo, because there are things that cannot be said in English at a graveside and Nnewi. She said, "Nwam, I mere ihe m ekweghị ike ime." which means, my daughter, you did what I could not have done. Adaeze said also in Igbo, Ma, emere m ihe m ga-eme iji wee zụọ ụmụ. Ma, I only did what I had to do to raise my children. Nelson's mother took her hand. She held it. She did not let go for a long time. Then she said quietly so that only Adaeze could hear, Aga m akpọ gị ọzọ mgbe ha rutere afọ 10. I will call you again when they are 10 years old. Adaeze nodded, and that was the whole of it. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning in March of 2027, Adaeze Nwachukwu Okafor stood at the gate of the Solo campus with a cup of coffee in her hand. She had, in the ledger kept for herself on Saturday morning, began to write down the things she owed. The list was short, but the list was hers. Every line on it was hers. There was no one in any building she now walked into who would take any of it away from her by getting up from a couch at 9:47 p.m. on a Wednesday and deciding that he was tired of her. This was what Adaeze Nwachukwu had reached for. This is what the woman who was thrown out of the house in Magodo on the 21st of December 2022 became. This is the woman who buried him. This is the woman his mother called. This is the woman Nelson Okafor did not, until the last 6 weeks of his life, know he had married. Her name is Adaeze. It means daughter of a king.